Welcome back, BAAR fam. For those of you who are new here, my name is Angelica. I hope you guys are all having a great day. So today I want to talk about something a little special. This video is going to go out to all the expecting moms and new moms during this time. I know having a baby during a pandemic is something that just adds a whole nother level of stress. So I wanted to make this video to kind of relate to you all about some of the nerves and how I got myself to build up the confidence to get through that anxiety. So if I can help any woman out there get through that, I definitely will, because you don't want that anxiety to overpower the amazing joy that you receive when you have your baby. So I wanted to share my experience with you guys. As you guys who have been following us know, I have two kids under the age of 2. My oldest, Adrianna, was born April 16th, 2020. She was born in the very beginning of the pandemic, so a lot of my pregnancy with her was pre-pandemic. It was really just literally the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy with her was kind of got a little hairy with the pandemic, and I'll tell you how things changed and different procedures and protocols, and we'll go over all of that, as opposed to my pregnancy with my son was completely different, and I'll kind of go over that with you. My son Brayden, he was born March 28th, 2021, so I wouldn't say he was born at the end of the pandemic because we are still currently in it, but I'll say he was born in the tail end where we kind of had an understanding of what this was and, you know, just how to kind of control everything as much as possible. So this is really just, this video is based off of my experience. I'm not an expert at all. I'm just really just sharing my experience with you guys to kind of ease some of those nerves. I wanted to make this video for you guys to have something to relate to hopefully try to ease your nerves, maybe laugh a little bit, I don't know, but I just want to be able to be a resource. I am by no means any expert, so hope you guys could relate to my video, and we'll get started. So with Adrianna, I got pregnant with her in August of 2019. As you guys all know, you know, during that time, everything was normal. You know, there was no pandemic. There was nothing that we could obviously foresee that was about to happen. I went for my 8-week appointment, and they did the ultrasound, and Raya was able to see her for the first time. For those of you who know, some doctors do it 6-week appointments, some do it 8 weeks. It's really just up to your provider. So this is really where they go over the heartbeat as well as do all the measurements just to make sure everything looks good. Of course, every woman would love to have their husband with them. It's such an amazing experience, especially the first time. You know, it's something that for men, I feel like for dads, it really allows them to kind of prepare and get ready for fatherhood, and it makes it more real. Kind of going through my pregnancy with her, everything was normal. Ryan was able to come to my appointments, my ultrasound appointments as he could. You know, everything for the most part was really good. And then all of a sudden, February hit. As you guys all know, February 2020, we started hearing stuff on the news, and you know, we all know what happened with that. So I had gone for my, I believe it was my 31-week appointment. I was definitely a lot further along in my pregnancy, and we had actually a few months prior to that, my grandma was actually going to throw me a baby shower for Adrianna. You know, it was our first baby. We were super excited, you know, wanted to share her with our friends and our family. And of course, the crazy thing is I had went for my doctor's appointment a weekend before. I had went for my doctor's appointment the Wednesday before the baby shower. The baby shower was supposed to be on Saturday, okay? This was like around March 16th, and at that time I was still going every 2 weeks. As you guys know, as you get later on in your pregnancy, you go from every month in the first and second trimester to towards the end, you go every 2 weeks, and then you go, I think it's the last 4 or 5 weeks, or last 6 weeks, I'm sorry, you go every week, just depending on your provider. So that's how my doctor did it. I remember this appointment and I will never forget it, and this is the one I want to share with you all. So this was around the time, it had to be like around March 12th-ish or something, March 14th. We had the baby shower, like I said, it was supposed to be March 16th. And I was, getting ready to prepare. I was just resuming, I was just going to my doctor's appointment, not thinking anything of it. Now, prior to my doctor's appointment, I had been watching the news. And of course, as we all been watching, there was a lot of stuff going on about the pandemic starting and just, we started to see early signs. I don't really want to get into it because this isn't a video specifically about the pandemic. So I don't want to go over that. What I remember about this appointment in particular was I remember sitting down to my doctor after I had been, watching the news and had all these questions for her. And all the questions were about what was going on. And I had mentioned to her, I was like, I have this baby shower coming up. What should I do? I'm really uncomfortable. My grandma, with the kindness of her heart, threw this baby shower for me, and I didn't want to say no. But hearing stuff on the news, there was a lot of uncertainty at the time. My doctor didn't know anything about it, just like anybody. So there was so much question going on. And I remember her saying, I can't advise you, I can't tell you what to do with the shower. But from my experience, I would say as of right now, from what we know about this, I would say that you keep your distance, and that if you go, you keep your distance and you stay sanitary, washing your hands and things like that. But I'd probably advise that maybe you don't go. So as a result of that, I was driving home. I wasn't really comfortable. I just had this sickening feeling in my stomach. And I called my grandma and I was like, we can't do this. We have to call the shower off. We can't do this. We can't be around a lot of people. We can't ask our family to travel. And guys, this was the best decision. The best decision, not just for myself or my daughter or my husband. It was for my grandma, my aunt, my cousins, everybody that was coming in, because everybody, for those of you that don't know, my family lives out of state from everywhere. So everybody was coming for this shower. And it was something that I was not okay with. We called off the shower, which I'm really glad we did. As I said, I have so many family members that were out of state. It was hard to not have a baby shower. It was hard not to be able to send it to celebrate with my family. My first child, is definitely something that, for those of you that have done it during 2020, you guys know a lot of people did drive-up baby showers. We got really creative during that time. I didn't do it. I just wound up canceling it because I was so far along in my pregnancy, and it was at the very beginning. Nobody knew anything, so it was just the best option for us at that time. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about my anxiety during that time. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I am a very anxious person. As you guys will grow to know me, I am a very anxious person. I am not somebody that is very calm and collective. Even though I appear to be, I'm not. I was starting to feel the pressure a little bit, and it wasn't just the pressures of being a first-time mom, because of course, when you first find out that you're pregnant, you go through these different phases, right? When you first find out, you're so excited, you can't wait. It's just it's this joy that you just can't describe. And then, as you get closer, I would say past the 20-week mark, so after halfway through your pregnancy, I'm gonna say this for my first time, you start to get a little anxious, because not about being a parent. Sometimes you do. For me, I didn't. But that, like I said, everybody is different, and if you do, that's okay. It's something that's brand new. It's life-changing. So it's definitely something that if you are feeling any bit of anxiety, guys, it is okay, right? So I started to be a little bit anxious about, how was it going to be labor and delivery? It was my very first time. I started to hear a lot of hospitals were not allowing the spouse to be with the mom. And if I tell you guys, I literally went on my hospital's website every single day, updating visitor policy, updating, refreshing. And I asked my doctors every single appointment, did you guys change it? Did you guys change it? I had the worst anxiety about it. For Adrianna, there wasn't that much. I wasn't pregnant for a lot of the time that we knew what was going on. It was a very small period. I would say the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy, we started to have to wear, they started to do a little bit more safety protocols. There was some social distancing at the doctor's offices, meaning my doctor actually, which I love this, I think it's great. I think that they should still do this. What they do is they would have us call once we got to the parking lot, and they would let us know if it was okay to come up. They would do our temperature check, and then they would bring us back to the room, just to keep a lot of the pregnant women safe, and not just pregnant women, but just any of their patients safe. I thought it was a great idea. So something that was a little bit different. I remember going into probably my 34-week appointment, and my husband's work had shut down completely. He was home indefinitely for what turned out to be over a year. We didn't know that at the time. Luckily, I don't want to get into all the details, but luckily, his work was awesome and we were able to sustain during that time. My husband was not physically going into the office, so I was actually able to, so he was like, oh, sweet, I can come with you this time and you don't have to do this alone. So I was like, cool, we get to that appointment, and one of the nurses looks at my husband and is like, I'm sorry, but she has to be here by herself. And that was the first time, guys, like literally, that was the first time my anxiety just went from here to here. I was just like, am I gonna have to do this on my own? All I kept asking the nurses was, am I gonna have to do this by myself? Am I gonna have to do this by myself? And I felt like just the emotions, when you're pregnant, it's just, in general, when you're pregnant, you just are really emotional and you cry all the time. And it's just, especially towards the end of your pregnancy when those hormones are super high. So I just kind of kept saying to the nurse, am I gonna have to do this alone? And they kept on saying we don't know. So luckily, when I did go into labor with Adrianna, I was able to have Ryan with me, which I know I was super fortunate, and shout out to all of you moms out there that did that on your own. I cannot imagine what you guys went through. And it wasn't just because I felt like I wasn't strong enough to do it without him. It was more so I didn't want that joy to be ripped from him. And shout out to all you new dads out there that had to take one for the team, and you had to sit back on your child's birth. That's very difficult, especially for your first child. Your wife doesn't really know what to expect, and shout out to you for being that support system, being strong for her. It was something that I felt so blessed and so grateful for, and I might even start crying as I think about it. I'm very grateful that he was able to be there with me, because I was scared. And so when we got to the hospital with her, I have to be honest, guys, they just did a temperature check and asked us a few questions. That was it. At the time, they were not COVID testing. So I didn't have to do that that time. I got off the hook with that, which was great. My husband didn't have to get COVID tested. We just had to wear masks. Every single time a medical professional was in the room, we had to wear masks. So, and another thing was my husband was not able to come and go as he pleased. So meaning once I got admitted to the hospital, he wasn't allowed to leave for whatever reason to get food or anything like that. So once we were at the hospital, we were staying at the hospital, they provided food for him. And we pretty much were in our own room quarantined for the entire time. So I did have to give birth with Adrianna wearing a mask because, as I said, they weren't doing any COVID testing. when I tell you guys, that is not an easy task. Okay, it felt like you feel like you can't breathe with it on to begin with. For the health and safety of, everybody in the hospital, much respect for that. Everything was good. Labor and delivery went great. Pretty much the protocol in the hospital, as I said, my husband wasn't able to come and go as we pleased, and we weren't allowed to have any visitors, which I have to be honest, guys, and this is my opinion. There's so much going on after a baby is born. Mom is tired, dad's tired, you have a new baby, and it was refreshing to feel as though, you had that time with your baby. And like I said, there's so much going on, so not having visitors wasn't entirely a bad thing. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that because you do want to share that experience, with grandma and grandpa and stuff. But I just feel like there's just too much going on at the hospital for you to really enjoy that time. So for those of you who don't know, Adrianna had to be readmitted back into our local children's hospital. The reason was because her bilirubin levels were extremely high, and we had to get her under the Billy light to help mitigate the jaundice that she had. So I had to actually stay the night by myself with her, and I remember it being like the hardest time because I just have this beautiful baby girl. She's so sweet, so innocent. I have to watch her get her little heels. They used to draw blood from her heels just to keep testing her Billy levels like every few hours, and it just it hurt to not have that support of my husband. My husband was actually able to come in with us for like a few hours, but then he could not stay the night. They pretty much kicked him out afterwards. So, even that experience I had to do on my own. So fast forward to Brayden, right? So Brayden, I found out I was pregnant with Brayden that July, so extremely a blessing. But I think it was more of, I was embarrassed that it was so like back to back, which guys, you should never feel that way, ever. I'm a big believer, and I'm sorry to get off topic, but I'm a big believer that what is meant to be will happen, and it does. Little boy Brayden was meant to be here. Those two were meant to be brother and sister, and I really feel they have such a special bond. And I know it's so hard right now because they're so close in age, and they're both in such a dependent stage that it's just like they need mommy 24/7, but it's amazing. And I'll go over in another video about what it's like raising two kids under 2, and then I'll kind of show you what the craziness is like. With Brayden, it was very different. I had to do this on my own pretty much, and this is nothing against my husband at all. It is strictly because of the pandemic. So my very first appointment where they did the ultrasound, my husband wasn't able to be there. Because of COVID regulations. You had to wear your mask. You had to, like I said, call ahead of time, let them know, hey, I'm in the parking lot, my appointment's at 9:30, I'm here, and they would call you back, and then they would take you back into your room. So that's how it looked like with Brayden, and pretty much every appointment with him was like that. My husband Ryan was not allowed to be in any of the ultrasounds. I had some complications with Brayden, so I had to do a lot of ultrasounds after that. And I had to do that at one of our other local hospitals, not the hospital that I delivered in. And they also had a restriction of your spouse could not be there. It wasn't until my very last level 2 ultrasound that they were like, oh, your husband can actually come, and I didn't know. So it was like the one ultrasound. It was my last ultrasound too, because little Brayden boy decided to come at 37 weeks, and my appointment was 36 weeks. My husband actually could have came, but I didn't know about that, so he wasn't there with me. So literally the whole time, my husband wasn't with me for any of that. It was hard on him, it was kind of like, I could kind of tell with him, he knew obviously he knew I was pregnant, I was getting bigger and things like that, but I feel like that bond that he had with Adrianna while I was pregnant was so different. And even like into labor and delivery with Brayden, he was even different. And not that he doesn't love his son, he adores his son, but it was a little bit different for him because he didn't have that experience. So leading up to Brayden's birth, Brayden was actually born very unexpectedly. As I said to you guys, he was born at 37 weeks. A normal gestation is anywhere 40-42, so he was early term. He was still considered full term, but he was considered early term. I literally, guys, I turned 37 weeks that day, to the day he was born. We were all in denial. Me, my husband, I even think my doctors were in denial that I was gonna have him at 37 weeks because it was so early. I had him 3 weeks earlier than I was supposed to. So leading up to that, like I said, my husband was actually able to be with me to go to the hospital and everything. So that was great. It was just my doctor's office that they weren't allowing spouses. I don't know if that has changed since. Like I said, I had him back in March. Things have started to get a little bit worse, I would say. So I would think that those policies are still in place, but I wouldn't know. So what happened is how it was a little bit different. So going into Brayden's birth, everything, like I said, was so unexpected. It was crazy, guys. It was like he was almost a car baby, and that's all I'm gonna say. So it was very quick. So this time it was kind of a little different though. So this time, remember I told you guys with Adrianna, I didn't have to do a COVID test because back then they weren't testing. They needed those tests for people who actually had symptoms back in the early stages of the pandemic. So coming into kind of the later stage of the pandemic, I still had to do, so when I got into the hospital, I didn't have to do any of the screening questions or anything like that. They did take my temperature, they took Rye's temperature, we had to wear masks, but the weird thing is that I had to get a COVID test. I was in very late stages of labor. By the time I got to the hospital, I was almost 10 centimeters. I was like 9.5 centimeters, and I didn't know that, so I had no time. Like the nurse literally I went from triage to my room, like very quickly. There was like no time for anything. So what happened was with me, I get into the room, they had like 4 or 5 nurses. I had one ask me a bunch of questions. I had another one doing the IV. I had another one giving me a COVID test, and I'm having the worst contractions, literally less than a minute. And I was in so much pain, and I have the COVID test. Guys, if I tell you they did a rapid test on me, literally 10 minutes before my son was born, the nurse rips the mask off of me and she goes COVID negative. And she rips the mask off of me and she's like, okay, we're gonna do this without a mask. So with Brayden, I did not have to wear a mask. Another difference was that Ryan was actually able to come and go. He didn't, but he was actually able to come and go. My hospital had a little code word for him for the week, for the night, and they said, this is your code word. If you leave, because the birthing unit is very secure, they said if you leave, just call, give us the code, and we'll allow you to come back up. Because they were actually, with Adrianna, they were feeding him meals, but with Brayden, they did not. Luckily, we packed snacks. So for whenever we decide to have our next child, I will do a whole video about packing a hospital bag and stuff, because honestly, guys, I pack way too much stuff, but that's for another video. So that was the difference. We didn't have to wear masks at all in the room. Ryan didn't have to get tested. He had to wear a mask when a medical professional was in the room, but I didn't because I was negative. And he was negative as well. It's just they didn't test him. He had gotten tested for work, but because they didn't do it, they didn't really allow for him to take off his mask when there was a medical professional in the room. So those were some of the differences, just in terms of like facility policies, visitor policies. And again, this is going to be different depending on where you live, and also too, what the cases look like, things like that. So kind of staying healthy. So I kind of want to go through some of the things that I did in order to stay healthy during pregnancy, during this time. Now, of course, one of the main things that I was really nervous about was contracting the virus while I was pregnant. With Brayden, I did a lot more than I did with Adrianna because, like I said, with Adrianna, a lot of my pregnancy was pre-pandemic. So it wasn't like you necessarily had to be as careful, but you know, of course, when you're pregnant, you should be careful anyways. So I practiced a lot of good hand washing skills. I was always washing my hands constantly. When I would come home from the doctors, I would take a full shower, hair, everything, take a full shower and just put my clothes in the straight in the washing machine and do the load of laundry right there and then. So right there, I tried to get all the germs off. Also to my keys, my wallet, my phone, I wiped them down with Clorox wipes or antibacterial wipes. And I made sure every single time I went out, my husband and we did that. I never went out of the house without wearing a mask. I always had a mask on. I did not go to any restaurants. To be honest, guys, I did not go in any public place other than my doctor's office. And I know for a lot of you might not have that luxury. I am a stay-at-home mom, but I also own 2 online businesses. So there was no reason for me to go out of the house. But I know for some of you that might not be the case. And if that's your situation, the best thing that I could recommend is good hand washing skills, good hygiene skills, just constantly, taking a full body shower, putting your clothes in the washing machine. Make sure you run the washer right away, and wipe down your keys, your cell phone, your wallet, your purse. Just wipe down my car. That's what I also wipe down the steering wheel of my car, the armrest, the seats, the shifter, the stereo, the windows, everything. I always did that with Clorox wipes just to make sure that I got everything out of the car. I did this every single time I went to the doctors. So I also was very conscious about touching door handles. I have a antimicrobial touchless key that I use from Microbe Defense that I use to open up the doors. So that key came in handy. I always made sure that my mask was securely on my face, which also Microbe Defense has a really good mask extender. So I use that as well. So besides all of that, like I said, I did quarantine myself. I did have that luxury of being able to be at home, to stay away from people. I did not see my family or my friends, and some of them I still haven't seen in almost 2 years. And guys, it's sad. I've recently been able to start slowly see some of my family members, but I literally did not see a lot of my family members for a very long time. So that was really difficult as well. That's just some of the practices that I used in order to stay healthy. But of course, those are some of my methods. They might not work for you. They might not work your lifestyle, but that's okay. Everybody is unique, but those are just some of the things that I did. And I can list them down below in the description for you guys as well, if that's what you guys want. So you guys can reference it. But again, every facility, I just want to preface that every doctor's office is going to be different. My experience might be different than yours, but this is really just to overall kind of ease your anxiety if you are about to be a parent for the first time. Guys, enjoy it. It goes by so fast. I'm telling you, my baby girl is almost 1.5 years old. I'm probably gonna start crying. My little boy, he's almost half a year old already, and I look back and I'm like, where did this time go? So enjoy it, enjoy every moment of it. Please don't let this time take away any of the joy that you have right now. Enjoy every minute of it, enjoy every minute of your pregnancy, and enjoy the entire experience, because before you know it, you'll be on to the next stage of life. So there you guys have it. There is my story of having 2 babies in one pandemic. I hope that this helped some of you expecting moms out there. Please enjoy yourselves, stay healthy. If you have any questions, please message me on our Instagram. The link is always in the description, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. And make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we will see you here next time.